everyone won't maybe one more minute and then we'll just kind of get started and people will trickle on.
Y'all can hear me. I'm here. It's John. I'm going to be driving home though, so I'm just going to be listening for the time being.
All right, 12:01. Let's get started. So I trust that everyone had a chance to review the newest map proposal that Josh put out. So maybe just kind of comments, questions, concerns for Josh, first impressions on the map.
I think it looks awesome, Josh. You did a great job.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Grim.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I actually have two questions. One is sort of a Josh question, and one is a members of the commission question. But first, before I get to that, I sort of went back through my notes from our public hearings and all the things that people complained about or insisted on. It ticks almost all the boxes, obviously. So super great from that point of view. Things like, not splitting up Washington Square, all these things we've talked about a lot. That was great. My Josh question, and this is just, I don't understand. I fed the map that you sent into this free software, this Dave's redistricting thing, and the numbers were way off. And this is not to say that I am doubting anything about anything. I don't, do you have any idea why that would be? So that specifically, it had the north side district and the northeast side district. I can't remember now which was which, but one was at like plus 6% and one was at minus 6%.
That's a huge difference, and that's not where I would expect the differences to be. You know what?
Yeah.
Let me just double check and make sure that I didn't make a mistake. They use different databases, but the difference should not be that drastic. Since there are no state police or state prisons within the city, the only real difference should be that the people that are housed in state prisons around the state that are from Syracuse would be repopulated to the census blocks that they were from at the time of arrest, but that shouldn't lead to that big of an issue.
So I'm going to just toss it in the chat just so you can see what I'm talking about. But
yeah,
I mean, as I say, I'm not trying to say anything's wrong.
I'd like to compare the two because I mean, I'm using what my software gives me. I've never had an issue with it just flaking out and being especially that wrong.
Yeah, everything else was really tight. It was just those two, and it was the north side is 6% down, and the sort of eastwood northeast side was 6% down. So that was weird.
Let me grab in the chat and take a look at the lines that you put in Dave's redistricting and see what that is.
While Josh is kind of looking at that, we'll give him a moment. We can just kind of do some commission stuff outside of the mapping. We had discussions on Monday about the ad blitz. So one thing that we do need to just kind of briefly discuss with whoever is on today is Jihan is filling out a permit for like the City Hall steps, the big reveal for Thursday. Whenever, when we have the map to present, whatever map it is to present to the press and the public, and they needed time. And so since this is a Thursday, some of us are at work. We certainly want to make the evening news. I'm just curious what availability would look like for Thursday during the day. Who would be able to kind of pony show up there on City Hall steps, if that was realistic for some of our commissioners. Bruce,
I'll
I
be
think you're on.
available.
Jackie, you're available. Perfect. Just write some of this down.
Yeah,
can
I'm
make it.
free on Thursday.
Yeah.
Molly, what was the time again?
We didn't have a time. We need to get back to them with a time. So like if there are times that are like out for some people, I want to get as many people as possible. Is there a time that Beth is better than others? Like we were thinking maybe like between morning and afternoon is kind of what we were thinking.
I'm looking at my calendar now. Give me a second.
Okay. All right. So Graham, Bruce, and Jackie. Again, Larry. Okay. Again, depending on the time, I could move some people around. If it was in the afternoon, I could move some appointments. But if morning's better for everyone else, we can just do that. I know, some people just have work and they can't get away. So if you have flexibility, we'll also probably kick this out to an email, but we do need to put a time on that permit. So I was just getting a rough estimate here from everyone. Okay. So that is certainly, yeah.
Molly, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
John. Okay, good. So I'm sorry, I'm driving through East Syracuse. I'm advocating for like 9:30, 10 in the morning, just so we can make the noon news and the 6 o'clock news. That's just my 2 cents. I just wanted to be able to say it. That's all. Whatever we come up with is great, and I am available.
Does like 9:30 work for everybody? Just give me thumbs up or thumbs down. Graham, Bruce, Jackie,
fine.
Larry. Okay. We will have Jihan fill in the permit for 9:30 then. Okay. And then so hopefully we will have a map, whether it's map B or another version. We still have to vote, and that's another conversation. How we go about this. I was not on the call last week, the supplemental meeting, but it's my understanding Larry brought up a conversation about supermajority vote, just so that it feels like really truly the majority of us do, and not just like 51% like the final map. And so I think that's probably important, but I'm not sure that we even have a quorum to vote with today. Okay, so we do. So, I don't know, Larry, if you want to speak to that, about that final map adoption of the supermajority.
I think the way the commission has been working, it's obviously on simple votes, it's a simple majority. I think this is too important, but I also think that it's important not to exclude a significant minority from their positions, so that we have the ability to argue back and forth. I mean, I'll just take plan A and B, even though there's other options like Jason's map and things like that. So I think if somebody doesn't like a certain district or a certain map, they should be able to fight for what they want and try to convince the rest of us. But if we get to a point where 75% of the members in attendance at a meeting think that we should go with a single map, such as Plan A or Plan B or some other plan, then I think 75% of those in attendance should carry. So I'll make that as a motion to be further discussed.
Okay, so we have a motion. Bruce, I see your hand. Are you seconding? Yes, seconding that motion. So we can open it up to a discussion. We did send out that straw poll link just to get an idea of where we're at. So we're right on that line. Not everyone has voted the last I saw, but I think there were 2 no's and the rest were yeses. So we are on that line. That's just information. But this, of course, is not also the final map by any means either. So go ahead, Larry.
The way I think it should work is those no's might have quite significant information that the rest of us should pay more attention to and should try to push for their reasons. And if they could convince several of us and we get below 75%, then we got more work to do.
Right. I'll speak my piece first. I'm already unmuted. I like this plan. I would vote yes for the final map. We are on a real crunch to get this draft in settled. And remember, it is still just a draft. So I would say yes for supermajority for the final map. But I still see this as a process that is in motion. And so I don't think we need a supermajority for a draft map because it's going to change from us and from the public. And so I just wanted to make that distinction as part of the discussion. Floor is open for anyone else.
I'm confused about this Plan A. Could that be sent out to me or maybe to the group again? I saw Plan B, but what's the Plan A, Matt?
Plan A was sent out a couple weeks ago. It was Josh's first draft, but we can resend. I will resend that to you, Jackie. He's since done another one that we just got this week with some slight changes.
I mean, actually, some pretty significant changes. It's much more fine-grained now that we're using the census blocks.
Any discussion on this motion about a supermajority to finalize to move maps forward? Bruce.
Unsure. If in fact we think that we want to present Plan B as the tentative plan with expectation that input might change that in some way, is that the super majority that that Larry's talking about, or is it the final report, which sounds more definitive, and maybe that's the one we're willing to put our prestige, such as it is, behind?
I was talking about any map. Molly, I think, brought up a good point, and she would vote no for my suggestion. But I think that we'd look better on the steps on Thursday or anywhere else if we had really fought it out and had one set of maps or one map of several districts that made sense to the vast majority of us. But my suggestion for vote is that it be any map that we put forward to the community. That you obviously, Bruce, that could change when we get more input.
John, go ahead.
Okay, I agree with Molly, and Molly and I have gone back and forth discussing this issue in the time before this meeting. Next Thursday is coming, and we've already put out a press release saying we're going to have maps on City Hall, apparently at 9:30 that morning. So we need to have something, and I don't think we should be hamstrung by having to have 75% of our group agree on this first, what is a draft map. We have to have 5 public meetings after we present this draft map. And then once we get all the input and make the changes, if we need to make changes, that's the point where I believe that 75% or even 80% of us should be in agreement with what our final presentation to the city is. So that's also my take on the issue. And we'll also be able to have discussions with the public at our public meetings. So individual commissioners can say, yes, we put out this draft map, but I don't agree with X, Y, or Z, just like you brought up, Mr. or Mrs. Public. So that's why I think it's important for the final map, but not the draft maps.
Jason is in the chat saying if someone voted no to this plan B, can we speak as to why? I think those are important conversations, and that's what I want to spend the bulk of today talking about, because we have Josh here. So I don't know if we need to table this until either the end of the session or even Monday, because I do want to focus on the map. I think maybe it's putting the cart before the horse, deciding how we'll decide what map when we still need to talk about the map. But I want this to be on everyone's mind, because we have days to get this squared away. So maybe we could circle back around if no one has strong opinions. Bruce?
Yeah, I just want to respond to Larry. I think this vote to put it on the table and the vote to finally approve it are two different votes. I think this is just a vote to have us and have the public consider it. I'm not too sure if the 80% or 75% is going to be appropriate for this stage in the process. And I take Molly's impetus in terms of time to be significant. And so that's why even though I seconded the motion, I don't think that the supermajority is necessary for us to go on. I also think that any objection to the map, whether now or later, should relate to a criterion that has been previously put out, whether it's a community of interest or the like, that there shouldn't be some left field reason that none of us knew about or thought was significant. That at least my opinion is that this Plan B, because it's more granular, as Graham has said, is much better to present, is much more defensible in terms of what the public meetings points were. And I just as soon go through with that on a regular majority vote.
Bob, go right ahead.
Yes, I voted no to Plan B. And this is in response to Jason's question just now, because I still believe that the creation of a minority majority is wrong. It's out of our step. It takes away from what we were charged to do. And I would vote against any map that includes that minority majority. I think it's unfair, and I don't know if it would stand up legally. I think it could be challenged and we would lose this whole thing. So my opinion hasn't changed. I've said this before, so that's where I would stand.
What would be the basis of a legal challenge?
Well, the way I read the if there's a problem. When I read the court ruling, it said if there's a problem in the neighborhood, where, and I asked the question at the very onset of this, is this a requirement? And I never really did get a true answer other than that you were going to get somebody to look at the voting
Jeff and
policy
I talked about it. And
in
it's
the
not a
area.
requirement, but just because it's not a requirement doesn't preclude your ability to do it.
And you have said, Josh, that you said, well, I don't see anything that says you can't. Well, I would disagree with that. If it doesn't say you can, if there's a reason to do it, then by all means, let's do it. But just to do it because some people think it's a good idea, I'm opposed to that. It just makes no sense to me when there's not a problem. And if there is, so I would say it could be easily challenged, and I think we'd lose.
I respectfully disagree with you on the grounds of it being challenged and that you'd lose. I think Jeff would back me up on that. There's absolutely nothing against the law to do it. You know,
I didn't say it was against the law.
it would have to be against the law to lose the challenge, though.
Well, this, redistricting has been a problem all over the state and the country. And to do something like this, it should be a simple process to create something that didn't need to be created. I find objectionable, and I would vote no to any of the maps. And I said that at the very beginning, changed my opinion. I haven't seen anything believe that this is a good thing, because I just don't see any good coming out of it. Also, from the beginning, we were talking about the lines that we have were wrong, and that the public was going to come out and speak that these were problems. I heard nothing like that. All I heard from these meetings is that the common council people weren't doing their jobs. This has been a very interesting process for me to see all that's going on, and I would and will vote no.
Jeff, your hand is up, and I think
I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just telling you what I think.
Jeff, your hand is up. You
Right.
are
Yeah, I've
waiting.
had a bit of a challenge with audio, but I think I'm okay now for you to hear me. Just to address this issue on point, that where you have a situation of compact adjoining racial communities that are communities of interest, there is no problem in drawing a district that includes different racial groups. What we cannot do, however, is draw a district that would, let's say, go from the far southwest part of the city to the far, let's say, northeast part of the city to connect disparate racial communities based on race and race alone. That is called racial gerrymandering. Courts are, in fact, likely to reject plans should a challenge develop that has a district like that. And this emanates from about a 30-year-old Supreme Court decision where a congressional district followed an interstate highway for about 200 miles, only including Black communities to the left and right of the interstate. So that is something we cannot do. But if you have a compact, normally occurring community of Black or Hispanic residents that just where they happen to live near each other, that's fine to do. It's a community of interest. It is not driven by race. It's simply the same as drawing any other kind of a community around a university or a hospital area or a business district. It's really it's where the state law allows for community of interest. I'll also be mindful that the state law also requires that minority voting rights be taken into consideration. The state law is deficient in that it doesn't address the full picture, where you run into a Voting Rights Act violation situation where minority voting strength is diluted, but we don't have that situation in Syracuse. What we have is simply the ability, based on the public policy decisions of this commission, to draw districts that keep communities that are like-minded together, whether they are racial, socioeconomic, religious, business, academic, what have you. And I think Josh and I are on the same page here, and the map that he's developed reflects that kind of thinking.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else on this this topic?
I think that instead of us always leaning in on Dustin because Sato doesn't come with the package, we need to maybe invest some time in not asking her opinion. We're talking about I don't know if this is legal, but the president, common council president, to just explain or someone explain majority minority, because it may be an uninformed kind of thing that's going on right here, because there's a reason why this is happening, the redistricting. It isn't just out of nowhere. And so there was great concern about these districts and the underrepresentation. So for sure, somebody who could speak to it without, and shed light on it in a better fashion may be better than someone reading something, because we're more than just some statistics on a page.
Okay, Jeff.
Well, just to very quickly address that point on what is a majority minority district, under the Voting Rights Act, an effective minority district is one where the minority voters have the ability to elect their preferred candidates. And those are required where you have a Voting Rights Act situation, as I mentioned, where the minority voting strength has been diluted, where the minority voters cannot elect their preferred candidates, and that's caused by the Voting Rights Act. You also have something called majority minority districts, and those are by definition districts where you have 50% plus of one minority group making up 50% plus of a district. What we're talking about here are really more community of interest districts, where also the minority community is likely to elect its preferred candidate, is not required by law to do so, but there's no prohibition on simply, as I mentioned before, creating a community of interest-based district that simply includes Black or Hispanic residents. So we don't have the classic Voting Rights Act situation in Syracuse where we have racially polarized voting, where no minority candidate can ever get elected in the city. That's not the situation, but simply it's just as a good public policy, you can draw a district that would allow the minority communities to have a strong voice in electing representatives. That is a requirement, although poorly defined in state law, and but is also a community of interest by itself. I'll give you the classic example. 50 years ago, a challenge was filed against the New York Congressional District in New York City that included Harlem, because it included all of the Black population. It was a square or rectangular district, and it was argued that this put all the Black folks together in one district. That was wrong. The Supreme Court said, back in 1964-65, that Harlem simply happened to be a naturally occurring, geographically compact community that happened to be majority Black. There was no harm in creating that kind of a district. And I usually just go back and use that example because the same thing would be happening in Syracuse. We're not drawing a district that would be in violation of the 14th Amendment by drawing a racial gerrymander. The districts that Josh drew are all compact, they're all contiguous, they're naturally occurring. It's a very nice, neat looking map, both A and B, but B was drawn to even improve upon A. So if there's a challenge, somebody could challenge the plan, but my goal is to ensure that the final plan that you recommend to the Common Council is one that would withstand any legal challenge.
Thank you. And for clarification, Jeff, you've seen this map, and in your opinion, as it stands right now, it could stand up to a legal challenge around this.
Right, and Josh,
district.
right, Josh and I did this, when I saw Map B a few days ago, Josh and I did talk about it. And Josh, maybe you just want to repeat how much of the Black community is and Hispanic communities are or are not in the first and second districts, and why you drew the districts again the way you did. And if this was discussed while I was having audio difficulties, I apologize.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to share my screen real quick so I can, because I can visualize this much better than I can verbalize it, I guess. Oh, I cannot share.
Oh no, it's because Jihan's not on the video presenter.
Okay, well, I'll try and describe
sorry.
it. Okay, so there's a potential Hispanic community of interest just to the north west of West Onondaga Street. That was intentionally, if you recall the VRA test report that I put out, there were 2 example majority minority districts. There's one district that doesn't start at the southern border of the city. It's not the one that we moved forward with, but it shifts up more. And part of the reason to keep the majority minority district starting at the south end of the district is that there was a conversation around the Hispanic community of interest and ensuring that that community wasn't subsumed by the Black majority. So that area is in the District B, whereas the District A is the Black majority portion of the city and the valley. You know, a higher percentage Black majority could have been made should that district be shifted north, but the consideration of the Hispanic community of interest, you know, sort of overrode that. Also, that means that you're not packing all of the African American voters into one district in doing so. There's another African American sort of potential community of interest between, say, like Salt Springs Road and Erie Boulevard there, and that has been kept all together, but in a different district. It is now in the District D, which is the Eastwood, you know, sort of northeast quadrant district there. So in drawing these lines, you know, it was done with sort of an omnibus of the various different, you know, communities of interest that exist there, and I mean, real care was taken, you know, in where those lines were made, you know, not to diminish or minimize the voice of any one community.
Thank you very much, Josh. Melody, you've had your hand up for a little bit. Go ahead. Oh. Hold on, Melody, you're still muted.
Thank you for telling me that. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. What I wanted to do is I wanted to just share some insights and things that I have been experiencing and hearing. First of all, I want to say thank you to anybody who worked on those maps, because those maps, that's not an easy thing to do. We're not going to have a great consensus on it, but that's the whole point of this, isn't it? For us to share our thoughts and to share our thinking and to do exactly what we think is best for the city. One of the things I wanted to share that I did vote yes on sharing this Plan B. The reason I voted yes was because I wanted it to generate discussion. I wanted it to get something started so that we can say that this is what was presented. But as someone previously said, and I don't know who that was, I can step up as a commissioner and say, okay, this is what's been presented, but I don't agree because A, B, C, D, and E. One of the things that is has been forefront to me, and I'm just going to share my personal opinion, and I want everybody to be clear and to hear me when I say this. My personal opinion is that I think that we are dipping our toes into racial divide territory. And I think that we need to be careful about that. We work for the city. I have heard comments from people. I have heard things being said. I do not like them. I am offended by them. And I got to share that and let you know. I will be wary of that. I will keep my eye on that. This is Melody's opinion. I'm going by what I've heard, things that I have seen, and things that and body language that I have experienced. So, that being said, no, I'm not the only person that feels that way. I'm sharing my thoughts right now. That's the main reason why I said and why I believe that we need to get this map out there, be conscious, be considerate, and be aware of the concept of minority majority. But I think I like Jeff's term better, community of interest. Community of interest. I like how that plays. Okay. When I hear minority majority, I think that touches on that racial divide. And I'm going to stand up for my community. So yeah, I'm going to stand up hard and tough. Okay. So that's my point on that. That's why I voted yes. And I like the idea of community of interest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melody. Other thoughts on the community of interest district that we have on the southern side of the city? Bruce, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. The district wins on compactness. It wins on community of interest. To fiddle with that now by raising the racial issue sounds like reverse discrimination to me. It sounds like discrimination to me, racial discrimination, because the major reason it's going to be adjusted is not because it's not compact. It's not because it doesn't represent a community of interest. It's because of the racial majority that's contained in that district. And that concerns me as a motive for redrafting from Plan B.
Well said, Bruce. Thank you. Bob, go ahead.
I live in that third district. I live in the last street in Syracuse off of Salina Street. I'm at the very bottom of the city. So what you're talking about affects me specifically. I have lived all my life in Syracuse and moved 3 times within the same district. And each time I've moved for a reason. Now, when the upper limit of that new map as being Colvin Street, I wouldn't go up to Colvin Street. I have nothing in common with anybody up there, but my wife lived there. That's where I first met her. Then I lived over on Berger by McKinley Park, and the park's changed, and we moved to be in a like neighborhood. That whole south side from going down Salina Street from Seneca Turnpike over to 81, that's where I live. That's where my neighbors are. And that's what I would call my neighborhood. It's black and white. It's not a white neighborhood. It's not a black neighborhood. And I have very wonderful, gracious neighbors down there. I have nothing in common, especially economically, with the people that are now being clumped in to that whole district. So I live there. I've lived there all my life. I'm not talking about what I think. I'm talking about what I know and what I've experienced. And I've talked to a few of my neighbors and said that this is coming. Let's beware. And I'll go back a little bit to where I've talked with Tony. 2-5 district isn't going to work. I think this is a mistake. It does not. This is not a socially compact area like you're maybe explaining you're trying to say.
I'm curious.
That didn't come quite the way I wanted. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious, Bob. If there's 26 neighborhoods in the city, so different neighborhoods are going to be combined into a district. I live on the north side. I live in a very specific area on the north side. I consider the north side a new American community. I have no problem being a part of that community. This is the community that has built up around your house. I'm curious why you see that as troubling and what you would have a problem with being in this district.
I'm not saying, I'm talking about what you're changing the district to be. You're taking that whole central city and combining it now down with the south and the valley.
I think those people might consider themselves Southsiders.
No.
You said
Well,
yourself you don't live
you're,
there.
you're not from the valley.
Right, but the valley
You know
has
what?
to vote and
I
live
have to
somewhere.
say this as a Southsider. I agree. You know, we have some interest, but we don't have shared interest. You're more like on a Strathmore level in our vision of things. However, I haven't lived here my whole life, but I lived in New York City. I've lived somewhere. We have this wherever you go, and it's important for us to try to at least get it right. So you don't speak for a lot of people when you're talking about minority, and that people aren't affected by it. I'd have to wonder who you're probably speaking to the people you're in your area with, and that's what we do. So that's fine too.
Other comments or questions about map B?
You had some people had hands up. I don't know where they went, but
Yeah, I don't see any hands. People have hands up.
I want to say a comment about the valley. Is I think because it's on that most southern point of the city, to combine it with another neighborhood that's not the south side would make it look goofy and gerrymandered, right? It would be like, it wouldn't be concise and compact like our, top three goals. So it would look goofy to like draw a thin line around the south side to avoid the south side to then link up with Strathmore and Tip Hill, right?
John, then
Okay, God, I'm upside down. Sorry. One thing that, since we're talking about this map, and I think, first of all, I think it's fantastic. I think Josh did a really good job, and I think it covers what the majority of this group really wants. But I do anticipate some pushback from sitting councilors, because I did a little research, and we have 5 districts, and in 2 of our districts, 2 sitting councilors are going to live in 1 district going forward. Joel Majok and Pat Hogan are going to live in the same district. Jen Schultz and Joe Driscoll are going to live in the same district. That leaves districts.
I think you muted yourself.
We did that.
I
And
can't hear you.
I'm sorry, we were not supposed to consider where current counselors live when we did our maps. We certainly didn't. And I think these maps are good, but we are going to get some pushback from 4 counselors who now live in 2 districts. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So it's not a surprise when it comes in our public meetings. We're going to have 4 counselors who are quite angry with us. But again, I don't care because that wasn't our mandate.
Graham, you had your hand up.
I was going. Jason said what I was going to say, which is that, and it's a combination of what you said earlier, Molly, that the area at the south end of the city has to be in a district, and it has to be in a district that it's connected to geographically. You can't draw a district that is only that neighborhood because it's not big enough. And you can't sort of draw a district that includes that neighborhood and, Strathmore or some other random place without the places in between. It's just not how this is going to work. So, just to repeat.
Josh, is there an intention, sorry to cut you off, is there intention to come here at some point? Because you kind of do things sight unseen. So while all of us have these great insight and you're looking at a map, like, do you have an intention at some point to come take a look-see travel tour?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right now, I'm trying to figure out, how I can move some money around in the budget internally to be able to get a trip up there. You know, a lot of what I'm doing here is taking the input from the, you know, the public meetings and the discussions of the commission and itemizing things that people want and things that people don't want, and then basically trying to draw a map that achieves as much of that as possible. But yeah, I mean, it would be helpful. It's been a long, well, I mean, I was in Syracuse in September, but it's been a while since I've like been there for more than a weekend. So yeah, I mean, that would be helpful. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, you guys have a much better idea of how the city sort of ebbs and flows and how the blood flows through its veins, if you will. And you know, I think that it would be useful for me to come up and you know, and visit and see some things, but I don't even know that in a visit I could get the kind of perspective that, you know, all the commissioners have, having lived there for a while.
Jeff, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one comment on the incumbency home address issue. You know, it's correct that this commission cannot use incumbent addresses, and you know, Syracuse's method is being looked at statewide and even in some other parts of the country as a national, you know, model for cities to look to redistrict, and to, you know, all of a sudden, you know, be aware or be thinking of incumbency protection as much as you might personally, you know, want to bring that to the table, could equally backfire in the impression that this commission was in the back seat of incumbent legislators. You know, the city created this law. The law purposefully kept keeping incumbency off the table. And I think from the very beginning, obviously, the Common Council members had to know of that. And this is always a problem with redistricting when incumbents are paired together. But just giving you the, you know, the straight law is that we do not use incumbency criteria. Maps, according to state law, you know, cannot favor incumbents or political parties. So you know, the hope is that the final product will be one that will give this commission very high marks and, you know, serve as a model not only for New York State but elsewhere when it's over. Not that that should be our only goal, but we are keeping with the letter of the law. And after what we've seen with the state legislative redistricting, where the congressional plan was struck down for partisan advantage, the same could be said. And with the State Court of Appeals, where any challenge to a Syracuse plan would likely end up, if that happens, you know, could use that same reasoning that the state congressional plan was knocked out for. That's just a comment. It's not drawing to a conclusion yet.
I'm gonna
Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm gonna beat the horse. If we object to this map or any map, it should be based upon a criterion that's been acknowledged, accepted, legitimate, that we could defend. And if it's not based upon that, as you said, Jeff, very well, if it's based upon protecting incumbents, we can't defend that. If it's based upon some other personal a problem with the drawing of the district lines, we can't defend that. But based upon the criteria that we've established, that's created these districts, there's an objection. It should be based upon the criteria that's accepted. And anything else might be considered illegitimate. That's all.
Right. My understanding is that I had no idea where any of the counselors live. I don't think, you know, any of us Josh certainly didn't when he drew these lines. None of us are looking for that as criteria. My understanding, which John is bringing up, is just that as we're talking about this southern district, that we're probably going to get pushback from all kinds of places, and just to ready ourselves and be able to defend this map that the majority of us do like. So I think we're all on the same page that it's frankly not really our problem or up to us to worry about where these counselors live. It's just not on our agenda. So I think we, I just want to like pull us back that we don't care about that. It's just something that might come our way, but I had no idea it would come our way. So at least we have a heads up, I suppose. Okay. So I'm guessing Bob was one no on the straw poll. We had another no. I think Graham, in the chat, you had indicated early on that was you. I'd like you to address some of the concerns that you had with the map, or what you want us to think more about.
Sure, thanks. So mine was a very small issue that it seemed to me, I know we've talked many times about, time is short, we really need to get moving, but there was one thing that came up repeatedly at the public hearings that I really would like all of us, or as many as can make the time, to put some thought into, which was this issue of public parks and whether your neighborhood, whether the kids that live near you go to the park that's near you, and those are in the same district. And so I went to the city website, and I went and looked at the list of all the city parks. There's a huge number, by the way. And I drew them on the printout of Plan B. And there are a bunch of parks near the border between, I guess they're called A and B on Josh's map, but the West Side District and the Southwest Side District. There's a bunch of parks that are close to that border. And I would really like folks who know that area well to look at those and see whether they think that those are on the right side of the line, in the sense that folks who use that park live in the same district as that park. This was something that came up, especially at the last public meeting, or fourth and fifth, I think. And it seems part of the due diligence we need to do before proposing this to the city, even on a draft basis, is to make sure that those of us who know that area feel okay with where those lines are with respect to the parks. So and if we don't get that done here in this week before we have our big availability on Thursday, that'll be okay. But my preference would be to do it either right this second or in the next 24 hours or whatever, so that we can really say with confidence we have heard what people said at the meetings and we really have done our best to accommodate. That's it. Thank you.
Josh, yes. Could we pull up that map? I think Jihan made you the presenter, so you could share with us and any other comments that you have. Perfect.
Okay.
So is this the section that we're looking at, where you mentioned, Graham?
Yeah, so I was, oops.
No way.
I had to unmute myself. Let me get that back.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I have here is starting on South Ave, the border between districts A and B, and I pulled up like a topographic layer that has the parks on it.
We can't see it, Josh.
Yeah, I know.
It's not there.
Yeah. I hadn't shared it yet.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one, it looks like we've got sort of Elmwood Park, and is this like Lake Hiawatha Park or something along those lines?
It's Upper and Lower Onondaga Park.
Okay, those are right on the border there. I think that the changes that were made down in Elmwood, actually, I don't know, because the South Avenue, no, I mean, it's fairly, I don't know. There's a potential, who utilizes this park and who goes in there. Moving up here, we've got the this park system. It looks like a connected park system here. Kirk Park and what is that? Onondaga Creek Boulevard Park down in the lower part, and then Onondaga Park is there. Then moving up around the border, it is really not loving this layer. Let's see. I think that's probably the extent of it. I mean, there are, you know, the community plaza up here isn't really much of a park, and then there's you know, these two parks here. It looks like Wilson Park and Rooster Park.
Yeah, up on Adams, there's something called Billings Park, and just a block or two south of that.
The Billings
But
Park.
it's not really a park. Billings Park is just a triangle.
Okay. Yeah,
And then
so
like sorry, go ahead.
I would say that in terms of parks along this border, where that, you know, where who utilizes this park and which district should it be in, is probably this Onondaga Park and Elmwood Park down here.
Are they currently in the district with the rest of Strathmore?
The Elmwood is, and then the Onondaga Park kind of straddles both. So the lake is actually in the Strathmore district, but this other sort of portion of the park is over the border into the District A.
Excuse me, Josh. I want to make sure I heard you. Did you say the lake?
Hiawatha Lake, yeah, in Onondaga Park. I mean, I've never been there, but I'm seeing it right here on the map, and it does look like there's a little lake there.
Yeah, it's got a little fountain in the middle. It's nice.
I don't know where that is, and I'm a Syracuse native, so I don't know where Hiawatha Lake is.
I used to live on that lake.
It's right
on
in.
that Roberts.
That was direct feedback that we got from our Corcoran meeting, that they, you know, the Onondaga Park was important to the Strathmore neighborhood. And it looks like, you know, the part that that neighborhood utilizes is a majority in that district. Yeah.
I'm just wrecking my brain. I'm really thinking now, where is Hiawatha Lake? Where is that?
I mean, it's like a little, it's like a pond, like a big pond. It's like we're like, you know, like the gazebo-ish kind of thing that you always see it Onondaga Park.
And give me a street. What street is it by?
Onondaga Park Drive is like, it's north of West Colvin and south of Crossit.
Okay, if I'm thinking of what I'm thinking, that thing's been dried up for I don't know how long. If I'm thinking of the right place, if I'm not, then it's still wet. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a beautiful area. Bob, go ahead.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, I just had a mind thing. I know what you're talking about now. Thanks.
That Hiawatha Lake, that's right up by Corcoran. It's only about 3 or 4 blocks from Corcoran. And even back when I went there in high school, we went to that Onondaga, I would call it a pond, but they've got it labeled as a lake. And we actually played a concert sitting in that gazebo. It's a very beautiful park, swimming pool. It's still quite active. They stock it with fish. They have kids go up there and do fishing derbies. So it's a very popular place in that neighborhood.
Right. And I know Strathmore feels very prideful of it. So I'm glad that it has remained in that district with its home of Strathmore.
Are there any other areas where we want to take a look at parks near the borders? I mean, most of the other borders are highways. But I can just, you know, trace them and see maybe on the north side here. Yeah, the north side doesn't really have any parks that are close to that border that it'd be questionable about who uses the park. At least from the look of it anyway, I could,
Mhm.
I guess the only other one
Graham, is this,
is the Westcott Park over here. Or the Thornton, what is
That's
it,
Thornton.
Thornton Park?
Thornton.
Yeah,
Well, I think that one's fine.
okay,
Yeah, there were just on the, so still back to that border between A and B, we shifted the line to the northwest for just a couple of blocks. Do you know what I'm talking about?
right up here, yeah.
Instead of being, what is that, Onondaga?
Yeah, it's one
Avenue.
block, it went to Holland Street instead of West Holland.
Yeah, right. So, and then like a block north of that, there are two little parks on Kellogg.
Bakery? Or Ward Bakery?
Yeah.
Gallery? I can't, the text is fuzzy here. And
Yeah,
there's
and-
also Grace and Messina?
Yes, exactly. And I don't know that area at all. I don't know if those are real parks or, like Melody said about the other one, just a piece of grass in the street or something.
What's the name of them? I'll tell you.
One is Grace and Messina Park.
Not really a park.
And Ward Bakery Park?
I've never even Ward's Bakery.
It's like on Shawnard Street, near, like in between Oswego Street and Slocum Ave.
Yeah, I'm in my head. Shauna Street and Slocum. I'm there in my head. I don't even see something that could be listed a park, because that's where the Syracuse Boys and Girls Club is over there by the school, Seymour School. And if they're calling that a park, then it's a park. But it's really just a piece of land.
Okay.
Okay, so
Graham,
that's all the ones.
does this process kind of quench what you were, discussing about wanting a need for discussion around these parks?
Yes, it does. I thought it was important that we spend time doing this, even just whatever it's been, 10 minutes or something, just because it came up so often. So I appreciate folks taking the time to humor me. Thank you.
And it's appreciated that you did that, because one of if we could piggyback on that, and I'm not saying that this is the time, but at these meetings that we're going to be having, the other things that came up were transportation hubs, food deserts, all those things. And matter of fact, I'm having a meeting at 1:30 with Brady Faith Market to see how they fit into all of this. So yeah, because they have some feedback that they want to share. So I appreciate you, Graham, for bringing parks up, because it just piggybacks on everything else that we have brought up at meetings that we need to consider as well.
Any other questions for Josh while we have this beautiful map up? Just
good work. Good work. Good work.
With that being said, did everyone who is on this call today, did you all vote in that straw poll that Jihan sent out?
I think
I didn't vote.
Okay.
I think I did. I'm going to check and see. Is Jihan on? Can she tell us?
I think it's anonymous, so I'm not even sure that she knows. But I think she is pulling double duty right now, so I think she's only on in name.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know that she's actually here.
I didn't vote because I wanted to hear the discussion, but I would vote for B.
Yeah, I really like B. I think it's a great starting point.
Yes.
To have some good conversations with the public when they come, to see, some of the things that we took into account, some of the things that we changed and looked at. I think it's a good starting point. So I like it a lot as well.
I have a question in regards to, once we adopt this map and the following Sunday we have our first meeting. Let's suppose the first question is, why is this line here? Whatever it may be. Do we have a plan of defending our like how we drew the line, or should we talk about that on Monday? Because that could be another big discussion.
Yeah, I think that we need to kind of have some, I was thinking about this the other night, like whether it's we divvy it up like to different districts, and like we really become like an expert on our district, and can speak to that. So when a question comes up about a certain line or a certain district, maybe we have designated people who are the experts, and can chip in, of course, and chime in as you will. But I thought that maybe that might be helpful, and so like that's an idea for us to consider. But yeah, we're going to have to answer questions about this, so we should definitely have some kind of process in place to share our thoughts. Josh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share the map for 1 second, because a lot of the sort of a lot of the questions of why is this line here can be answered because on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. Oh, this line is here because we wanted Sedgwick in with Eastwood, and so that line. But let me show you a couple ones that are going to be where that's sort of not the case. So the first one I would go is in near northeast, and utilizing sort of James Street and Catherine Street here, really from 690, this line right here. The reason for that line is to balance the populations in the districts. It was shifted around a bunch to try and get, that's the entire reason why near northeast needed to be split, is because it's just got too much population there to be able to put it all in one or the other. So that's one area where the neighborhood, it doesn't have so much to do with the neighborhood, and it had to do with being able to balance the population of the two north side districts. Another area where that's going to be, I mean, part of it is neighborhood, but there's this sort of the University Hill area where 2 sort of dips in a corner, and then the line is drawn across between 3 and 5. Really, that all had to do, again, it's about balancing the population to come within the acceptable deviation. The reason why the downtown area is in District 2 here is because of the decision to keep Washington Square whole. So District 2 needed to be able to pick up population, and we didn't want to put it, the commission didn't want to put it north into Washington Square there, and so the only real place for it to go was right there. The AB district boundary here, I mean, this got shifted around a few times, but I mean, mostly it was because of demographics and neighborhoods. So a portion of it is, if we look at this, we're looking at like the sort of demographic borderline between the high concentration of African American voting age population in District A, and how that moves, into Elmwood and Strathmore, and where it makes sense on the ground to draw that line. And there was a back and forth. I think one of the things to mention there is to keep the park, with Strathmore. And there's a bunch of variability within there. So if that line needed to be fiddled, needed to be changed more, there's the ability to do it, but it would be a swap, in order to keep the population balanced. And, the other part is that, now the District A and Plan B comes across and sort of keeps South Valley whole, and there. And really, that population shift was to bring the northern boundary south a little bit to be able to create a more compact shape and have the population for the District B that came in there. I think most of the rest of it can be explained by either the desire to keep one of the major highways as the dividing line, as the major highways are frequently where they exist, the neighborhood boundary, or the neighborhood boundaries themselves. And so where we see this plan diverge from either a neighborhood boundary or a major highway, it generally has to do with being able to balance the population of the districts to come in under the 5% total deviation.
Josh, could I ask a favor of you? This is Melody.
Sure.
Could you send out that reasoning that you just gave?
Yes.
On why you think, that would be the where we get some pushback on those areas. That would be very helpful for me.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
I
for
think
others.
when presenting this plan, it would be helpful. We took, the process of drawing this plan, or the set of plans really, the process didn't start with the drawing of lines. The process started with listening and started with the definition of concepts, right? We like this concept, we like that concept. And then trying to then draw lines around all of the various different concepts that came up. And like one of the strongest concepts in the entire thing was which neighborhoods to group together and which neighborhoods to group separately. So I think like when you're discussing the development of the plan, the issue of the concepts is an important one, because it's important to differentiate an objection on the plan based on a small portion of where the line is drawn, right? A relatively small portion versus like having an issue with the overall concept that led to that line being drawn. And so being able to make that distinction allows you to have the conversation in the proper context. But yes, I will definitely write that up and send that to you.
Appreciate it.
No problem. I'll send it to Jihan and she'll distribute to everybody, and I'll also drop it on my folder on that Google Drive. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. I saw everybody froze and I was like, did I freeze or did everybody else freeze?
That's helpful. Josh, did you get a chance to that first issue that we came up? Can we circle back around to that with the disparity between your numbers and the Dave's redistricting
Oh,
numbers?
yeah. The line was drawn incorrectly.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Oh,
Thanks for
okay.
pitching it, Josh.
Yeah. Sometimes I see slight discrepancies because Dave's redistricting doesn't use the same database that's required by state law. But in this case, it was just he used used Oak Street instead of DeWitt, and that shifted all of the population in a thin, like 2-block section went into the opposite district. And because the population deviations are so close, that's what skewed the percentage that much.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns about map draft B? You got an email earlier this week that we're gonna try to have an initial vote on Monday, which is why we really want everyone to be present, so that we can have an accurate vote, especially if we're talking about whether it's simple vote or super majority, which we still need to decide. We can circle back around. So any other questions on this map B, because we are going to be voting on it on Monday, so that we can know if we're moving forward with it or if we need to have more sessions like this. Now's the time while we have Josh, if you want him to move
Josh,
something.
that's a small question on the and looking over the small slice you took out was considered Strathmore. You actually split it where across, it looks like if you're crossing the street, it's District 4. If you come back over, it's District 2. Is there a particular reason? Was there a count that you needed to make up that you did that?
Where precisely are we talking about?
So District 4, or you're naming it A,
Uh-huh.
so A is 4, and then next to A is maybe E or E for Eddie to the left of it, because
That'd be B, yeah.
Yeah, B. So see how you kind of split it in two. Is there a count that you were trying to achieve?
In the Strathmore area?
Yes, you sliced it out. Some you left in, and some you took out.
Yeah. Okay. So that, are we talking about Elmwood or Strathmore? Because I think the Strathmore line.
Strathmore.
I think that line stayed pretty much the same. Hang on, I have a really. Let me just go ahead and pull up a different map, because I have a pretty concise explanation of why that Strathmore line is drawn the way it is. But I got to open up a different map. So just give me 1 second, and I will go ahead and zoom in on that. Okay. So where's Plan B? There we are. All right, so let me share this real quick. All right, and so this is the line that we're talking about right here, correct?
Yes, that's the line.
Okay.
Going down though. It
Yep.
kind of makes it almost a V.
Yep. So this is the reason right here. If you look at the difference in the shades of red, you can see that there's a much higher concentration of voting age African Americans on the right side than there is the left side. And and we're also looking at the numbers here. So if that was included in the Strathmore district, the African American voting percentage in District A is going to decrease, and that population would have to be picked up somewhere else, most likely on this side of West Onondaga, which then cuts into the Hispanic community of interest up here. So that was the reasoning for it, is that the demographics over here match the rest of the south side over here better than they do with the rest of Strathmore. All right.
Okay. Oh, now I was trying to unmute. Yeah. Okay. I just needed to. All right. Thanks.
So
then, if I'm thinking about it, so you cross over the street, it becomes another district. Is that how you?
Yeah. So if you cross Summit Avenue, it becomes a different district, or on the northern end of it, if you cross. I'm not sure what street that. Oh, it is Summit Avenue up the whole way. Yeah. So yeah, one side of the street will be in one district, and the other side will be in the other.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, John.
Just that's a pretty natural place to make that line, because Parkside, Parkway, Temple Street, that's going up a rather big hill. Okay, it's almost an escarpment. So all those streets go up and end where Josh drew the line. That's basically on top of a cliff. So not only does the demographics make sense, but geographically it makes sense to draw the line there, because everything to the right of that line is going down a big hill, and everything to the left of that line is on a kind of a plateau up around Onondaga Park area. Just wanted to point that out.
I'm going on a walking tour, John. You gonna go with me, John?
I did that for 24 years, Jackie. I'm good. Thanks.
And for Summit, you're right, John. There is like that cliff. Are there even houses on that other side of the street, or is it just like the one side?
There's basketball courts, and it really just goes down the hill to Onondaga Ave.
It's like a view. I know that it's like a beautiful view, but I don't even think. Maybe I will go for a drive this afternoon. I don't even know that there's. I used to babysit on that. I used to babysit on that street, and it's just like I don't even think there was a house across the street. There's.
It looks like on Summit Ave, at least this portion of it, there are houses along the street. And then I can let me zoom out a little bit, and I'll go around the B section. It doesn't look like on that section there are actually, no. On this section right here, if you can see, there's no houses on the street until you get south of the park.
Okay.
On Summit Ave, and then once you're south on Summit Ave, the area between that Park Road and, I'm trying to see what's at the bottom here, Glenwood, it looks like it has buildings on the street. I don't know if these are outbuildings or if this is a portion of this property. If they're outbuildings of this property, then it's likely that the actual street that it's on is Charmouth and not Summit.
Right.
But like these ones are not outbuildings, so that those would definitely be on Summit. There's far fewer on that side of the street than there are on the other side of the street, but it looks like some do exist.
I don't know if this is just like a can of worms, but it did come up at our meeting, like before about like lines that are drawn down the center of the street and like one side of the street. Like, is that just like the nature of map making, or is it like,
Yeah.
oh, Summit, both sides of the street can be in this one district,
Not
and
without,
that's where
not
we,
without moving it one street over. It's because the census blocks themselves
Oh.
are drawn down the center of the street. And
Okay.
we don't have any real flexibility as to where the census blocks are drawn.
That makes sense. Okay, perfect. Other questions for Josh while we have him? Concerns or questions about this draft map? So before, we do have to circle back to this issue of the supermajority that we kind of tabled. We're circling back around now before we lose any more commissioners. I think some people had to jump off for other meetings or lunches and things like that. So let's continue our discussion about the supermajority. Do we want a supermajority to put a map forward? And should it be all maps or just the final map? Those are the two things to focus on. Some people who have not weighed in on that topic, if you could share your points of view. Graham.
Yeah, thanks. I support the supermajority. This issue that you raised, Molly, about whether it should be for the final map or for all the maps, I hadn't really thought about until today, so I'm trying to process. I think in the best of all possible worlds, we would stand behind whatever we propose as a draft in the same way that we would if it was the final. And so I would think that right, but this is kind of cart before the horse, right? If we could make sure that we're going to have a supermajority for the first one we publish, the draft, that would be great. Yeah, so I'm struggling with what the right thing is there. I think the straw poll didn't get enough feedback to really have a good, handle on what we should expect. And so I think probably at this point we're forced to just stick with a simple majority for the draft map, though I think that's suboptimal.
Go ahead, Larry.
I still support the motion as I presented it, because I don't think it would be good to stand on the steps and get interviewed and say, well, we're 50-50, but this is our map. I still think a supermajority of 75% is worthwhile. I think, unlike Graham, I think we're there. There's a number of us who said we didn't vote yet, voting yes on the Plan B. But I can accept either a simple majority or the 75%. I just think 75% is a lot better when we present things to the public.
Sure. Babette. Oh, you might be on mute. Are you there, Babette? Oh, I don't know what's going on.
Should we call the question?
Babette, I don't know why your audio is not working, and we're running low on time. Could you type in something to the chat? For whatever reason we're not able to hear you, and I want to hear what you have to say before we go to a vote, because we're nearing up to 1:30 here. Jason put his comments in the chat. Who else do we have on here? Brenda, Jackie, any comments about this super majority?
I agree. We'll
me
do
too.
a super majority, at least for the map, for the drafts, because it is premature to start talking about the actual map yet.
I also agree. All right. Just for the drafts, and then wait to see how things progress as we get more feedback and as we go through the other hearings.
Okay. All right, so we will vote on this motion that Larry made to have a supermajority vote that will pass along our maps. So including this draft map that we hope to present on Thursday. So if you do not have your camera on, either raise your little hand at the given time or put it in the chat. All those in favor of this motion to have a supermajority for this draft map, raise your hand. All opposed? One opposed. Okay. All right. The motion passes. We will go by a supermajority. So hopefully we can have this hammered out Monday when we officially vote. I beg that you just, if you have some other kind of conflicts, at least log on, and we can just do it very quickly, just so we have a vote and we can get the super majority, because we have all of our people and I want to make sure the whole point is that all the voices are heard. So any other questions, concerns, comments?
I just want to say something. Come
Yes.
Monday when we do the vote, if you do vote no, come with compelling arguments like Robert did today. Bob, he had great arguments, and they were, they made sense at least. So if you do vote no, make sure you come with arguments as to why no, and then a solution that would help you vote yes. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Good point. Anyone else? All right. We are meeting in person on Monday, but there will be a WebEx link. So no excuses. You can all be there, hopefully. And Jihan is going to get all of the finalized information on parking and that kind of thing. But it's right near City Hall. So we'll walk down memory lane as we walk into our new meeting. So any motions to adjourn? Graham makes a motion. Bob seconds. All in favor?
Have a
Any
good day, everybody.
opposed? Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.